As a child, I tried to keep track of certain things. Cracks in the sidewalk between the bus stop and school, names of streets between the bridge and our family's house, toy soldiers lined up on a shelf. Now the list of things I've lost or forgotten or thrown away, at times seems longer than the list of what remains. Sometimes this feeling visits uninvited late at night, when every breath is a footstep measuring the miles till dawn. But this gray morning, as I walked across the yard, the sun suddenly shoved through the clouds to warm my face. And later I was graced by a small kindness from an unexpected source. This is not the life I would have chosen, but I will try to keep an open hand for the gifts it spreads each day across my path,
Well,
like Easter eggs hidden in the grass.
wow. Then tell us who you are.
I'm Charles Coe.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
this
you.
is AHA, which stands for a human among humans.
I like that.
And we try to get the best humans we can find in the Northeast. That's why we invited you this evening.
Well, I try to be the best human I can be.
Yeah.
Some other species I'm working on, but I haven't gotten that far with
I
those.
can see from that poem. So what does it mean to you reading it this time? Or what does it feel like?
Well, that's a poem I wrote after I'd been working with a group of inmates at the Norfolk Correctional Institution for a while. And I wanted them to realize that it was about me as well as about them. I don't think I could have really shared it with them when I first started going there. There was a sort of level of trust and getting to know each other that prompted me to write that after a while.
And what does it mean that you wanted to know it was about you as well as them?
I wanted them to know that it was about me as well as them. I wasn't just writing a poem about you guys in the joint. I was writing about how we're all in certain ways trapped by some circumstances or in a prison of a certain sort. I don't want to sound overly dramatic with that,
Yes.
but everybody's got something that we're struggling with, something that restrains
I
us.
would like to break out.
Yeah, we all want to break out, and so that was a poem that I hope gave them a sense that even if you're in a situation where you can't walk away, there are times when that sun will come out from the clouds, and if you can take those small gifts sometimes, then that's a way of focusing your attention on something that's
Breaking out of whatever,
yeah,
like Easter eggs in the grass.
like Easter eggs in the
Oh, right.
grass.
Well, Charles Coe, I would love you to read it again now that we heard a little about it.
I can do that.
Yes.
Inventory for the poets of Norfolk Correctional Institution. As a child, I tried to keep track of certain things. Cracks in the sidewalk between the bus stop and school, names of streets between the bridge and our family's house, toy soldiers lined up on a shelf. Now the list of things I've lost or forgotten or thrown away, at times seems longer than the list of what remains. Sometimes this feeling visits uninvited late at night, when every breath is a footstep measuring the miles till dawn. But this gray morning, as I walked across the yard, the sun suddenly shoved through the clouds to warm my face. And later I was graced by a small kindness from an unexpected source. This is not the life I would have chosen, but I will try to keep an open hand for the gifts it spreads each day across my path, like Easter eggs hidden in the grass.
Oh, my. There's even more tears. So this is not the life I would have chosen, which might be true of many people, yes. We discover where we have been.
Right. And you reach a certain age and you start thinking about all the things you've screwed up or that you hadn't done. And I think past a certain age, making peace with all that
Yes.
You have to make peace with it.
I find they assault me, these images,
Sure.
and now in my better moments, there's a poem by Rumi you might know. Um, each has been sent as a guide from beyond, all these images. Depression, meanness, sorrow, are things we lost. And they're in some ways, at least for me, and I guess Rumi, they have something to teach us.
Right, right, they do. And it's our choice. We don't get to choose the things that come up on us.
No.
We don't get to choose the circumstances that come at us, the external circumstances. We get to choose how we respond
Yes.
and what we tell ourselves they mean.
Well, and we don't get to choose the sun shoving itself through the glass, but we can respond. I think
Right.
I think sunlight will be a little more precious to me after this poem.
Oh, good. Good. Good.
Wow, poems can really do that. And you used to do music.
I used to do music. I used to do music primarily, and I stopped doing it for a long time to focus on my writing. I was working full time for many years, and so it was, all right, full time job, music, writing, pick two.
Oh,
So I focused on the writing, but now that I'm retired and it's going on 4 years, I'm doing music again. I'm singing again, and I play and teach the didgeridoo, and that's what I'm doing. I'm easing the music back into my sort of mainstream creative life.
so you
if
could
will.
sing these poems, perhaps? Yes. No?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, I guess
No.
not.
No.
I guess we have a sense that he's not going to sing these because.
Well, it's not the right tool for the job of conveying what's in these poems. I do write songs,
Oh, I see, and that's
and
different.
that's a different thing.
Yep.
So and those are poems of a sort, but they're the tool that suits conveying those words is the music, is the voice.
Yes, I understand. Leonard Cohen said that he was primarily a poet, but since he wanted people to hear his poems,
Right.
he started singing them.
Yeah, right.
If we had time, which we don't, you're lucky, I'd ask you to sing one of your songs, but you have too
Another
many.
time.
Yes, another time. You have stay tuned in the future. We might have Charles Coe.
Well, Leonard and I have the same birthday.
Leonard Cohen?
Yeah.
So I don't, for sure you have to come back and sing. But we have another poem in the title about the Norfolk Correctional Institution, which we talked about before,
Right.
and I taught there too.
Right.
And Charles, you volunteer there, yes?
Right.
To teach or learn, and you love it there.
I love it there. I find it the most respectful and supportive community of poets I think I've ever been
And
a part
appreciative that we come.
Big
They
time.
really love us.
Really big time.
Yes, I love that. Even though I had a marking book, you don't.
Right. Well, you were teaching
Yeah.
and you were grading people.
Yes.
And I was visiting and helping with workshops, and I was doing readings and participating in readings. So I wasn't grading them.
Yes,
So,
so that had to be nice.
so you had to keep a little bit of a
Yeah. So why don't you share with us the poem about this, that, at least in its title, is about the Norfolk Correctional Institute.
Well, that's the one that I read.
Yes.
So that you want me to read it a third time?
Well, we didn't read it on the show. I'd like you to read it to.
Okay.
We prepared, but I want to let our vast audience have the
Okay.
opportunity of.
Well, I have to correct you because I did read this poem. This is the one about the Easter eggs hidden in the grass.
Oh, you did. Oh, so I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, and then I'm mistaken. It's Memento Mori. I would like to hear.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Because I was thinking maybe I've phase shifted into an alternate
No,
dimension.
it was me.
I do
Next
that a
time
lot.
you think next time you have a choice between your the person you're talking to and yourself.
That's good.
Oh yes.
It's like greetings, Earthling.
Yeah.
This one, this one, Memento Mori,
Which is the title of the book.
which is the title
Why
of
don't
the
we
book.
show people they can see it from afar?
This is Memento Mori. This is an advanced copy. The book itself comes out in April, and hopefully I have a chance to tell people about that when it happens down the road. Memento mori in Latin means remember you must die. And when a lot of us hear that, we say, oh man, that's kind of gloomy. But the Romans who used that phrase didn't mean for it to be gloomy. They meant it to be a reminder to be alive, to remember the eventuality of your death, but not get hung up on it, and to be present.
And to be more cherishing of, if we're going to die,
Right.
that sun shoving itself through the clouds
Exactly.
can be, exquisite.
Right.
It might be the last sun that shoves
That's right.
into us.
You don't know. And like you mentioned when we were chatting before, it's kind of a carpe diem,
Yeah.
seize the day sort of feeling, a different way of putting that.
Yes.
So this is Memento Mori, the title poem. 1. According to legend, a Roman general who won a great battle would be paraded through the city, standing in a chariot, waving to the tens of thousands lining the boulevard, cheering and shouting his name. Behind him would stand a common soldier, or sometimes a slave, holding a crown above the general's head in a gently mocking gesture and whispering in his ear to keep his vanity and pride in check. Remember, you must die.
Wow.
2. There's a tiny bump on the back of my right hand, invisible to the eye. Years ago, when I was being prepped for brain surgery, a catheter was inserted there, and the bump remains. Sometimes when I'm tired or bored or anxious, I'll realize my finger has been moving over it slowly, back and forth, stroking it like a talisman, a reminder to make the most of the never-to-be-repeated day. 3. The late afternoon light that slants through the blinds, painting zebra stripes on the dining room table, takes me back to my sister's last day, when she lay in the hospital bed, and the sun streaming through the window illuminated the salt and pepper hair, wispy and dry, spread out against her pillow.
Well, it gets poignantly sadder each time I hear it. So why don't we just do one stanza at a time to just talk about?
Okay.
Well, tell us first what moved you to write it.
Well, the spirit behind the book is that sense of looking at how to take advantage of what we have and to remember our mortality, not be foolish and la 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 la, I'm going to live forever, but to not be ground down or morbid about it, to just see it as a reality that reminds us to be present, to take advantage of what we have going on now.
Well, that's cheerful. I'm just beginning to think of mortality pretty much daily now that I'm going to be 78.
Wow. 78, man, you're working it well.
Yeah, so
Yeah, good for you.
as I was saying to you before the show, in my better moments, Abby Hoffman's words, death is the best trip of all.
Right.
That's why I say for less. But this is not about death at all.
No, it's not. Although death is, I've been reading some of the Carlos Castaneda work again, the Yaqui Way of Knowledge.
Yes.
The Mexican writer who spent time with this Yaqui Indian and had all these mystical experiences with him. And people would say, "Oh man, that stuff didn't really happen." And my response was, that's not the point. The point is, what does reading these words and hearing, if you want to call them allegories or parables, what does it make you think about in your own chest, in your own life? So he said that the proper way to live is to keep the right distance from death. Death is always walking behind you. So you don't want death to get too close up on you or let it get too far away, because either of those has a consequence. I won't, go through a whole rap about it, but I think it's kind of obvious. You want to keep that sort of dynamic tension, the reminder that keeps you present but not so distant from it that you get kind of silly and everything is like, oh, I can do that tomorrow and next year, because you can't necessarily. Like you say, this could be the last time the sun breaks through the clouds on your face.
Shoves to the clouds.
Shoves, yeah, that's right.
So what? So was there an event that moved you to write this?
No, poems, as you know, as a poet, poems come to you in different ways. Sometimes there's an experience you have or something you see on the street. It could be something very small, but oh yeah, I want to write about that. Other times there's just a mood or a feeling, an image that comes into your head, and you sort of work with it. I've been intrigued with that idea of memento mori for a while. Doing a bunch of reading, and the image of that description of the general in the carriage. That's part of the mythology. That's part of the story in ancient Rome about how they saw that term and how they used that term. So I thought, man, wow, yeah, I want to write about that. And then when I started writing, there were other elements that came in. The question of that tiny little reminder of my mortality on my hand,
Yes.
and the much more significant reality of my sister's passing, and how kind of random and innocuous events can remind you of something, like just the sun coming in through the blinds on my dining room table, and then oh yeah, it was like that in Carol's room at the end. So I guess that's how these things, your brain, your muse is sort of taking something from this part of the buffet and that part of the buffet, and you kind of work with it, and eventually, oh, there it is, this dish that you made out of these disparate ingredients, but they came together. You
Yeah,
hope
they
they
do.
came
They
together.
do, and they keep playing with each other.
Right.
You, your sister, and the great myth.
Right.
And the
Right.
great myth was not just about remembering you may die, but it was about vanity. Yes.
It
And
was
what
about
else?
vanity. It was about pride. It was about walking around with blinders on.
Well, that I would get because the life is so rich.
Right.
And what? Why would the memento mori help us with pride and vanity?
Well, pride and vanity are. I mean, the Romans never wanted their people, their senators or their generals or their heroes, to assume the qualities of the gods,
Yes.
because they were very grounded in that way, and no matter how much you achieved, you needed to keep your feet on the ground, and so they would have that person in the chariot with the general in such a case and it wouldn't be a big shot, it would be a grunt, a common soldier or a slave, to say, yo man, keep it in check. It's great to have tens of thousands of people.
But you're not immortal.
You're not immortal, you are not a god, you are a
Also
man.
keep it that well.
You are a man.
Right. Well, all of them your poems have that yin yang of celebrating life and remembering.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think that's true. Even in some of the poems that are cheerful, there are some cheerful poems in here too.
Oh, good.
But even in some of those poems, there's a little whisper of something under the water.
Which is very nice. Now, so with your sister dying, that's your memory of her dying, though, yes?
That was her last day. That was about
Yes.
an hour before she passed.
And that is connected to the memento mori because that reminds you that you are going to die too.
And it reminds me to be here,
While you're
alive,
here.
While I'm here. I mean, I wish my sister was still here. There's so much, my last book, which was called All Sins Forgiven, Poems for My Parents. I wrote most of those poems after my parents were gone. And as I was writing it, I was blown away by how many things I never said to them, or how many things I asked them, or there were 10,000 questions I never asked my parents. And there were 10,000 conversations I wish I'd had with my sister,
Oh my.
you know? And you can't do it now.
Well, with your help, though, in these poems, we can, starting now,
Yeah,
starting at 7:22
yeah.
Sunday evening. Well, I'd love to hear this again, if you don't mind.
Sure, I can do that again.
Yes.
Memento mori. 1. According to legend, the Roman general who won a great battle would be paraded through the streets of the city, standing in a chariot, waving to the tens of thousands lining the boulevard, cheering and shouting his name. Behind him would stand a common soldier, or sometimes a slave, holding a crown above the general's head in a gently mocking gesture and whispering in his ear to keep his vanity and pride in check. Remember, you must die. 2. There's a tiny bump on the back of my right hand, invisible to the eye. Years ago, when I was being prepped for brain surgery, a catheter was inserted there and the bump remains. Sometimes when I'm tired or bored or anxious, I realize my finger has been moving over it slowly, back and forth, stroking it like a talisman, a reminder to make the most of the never-to-be-repeated day.
Wow.
3. The late afternoon light that slants through the blinds, painting zebra stripes on the dining room table, takes me back to my sister's last day, when she lay in the hospital bed and the sun, streaming through the window, illuminated the salt and pepper hair, wispy and dry, spread out against her pillow.
Oh, celebrating your sister, even the memory you can celebrate.
I'm writing a prose memoir now that focuses on my family, and was about my family, and it focuses on Carol. So she's sort of center stage.
Well, I can't wait to, I would love to read it.
It'll get there, but if a safe doesn't fall on my head, I will definitely get it finished.
Oh, I love it. Well, we have 2.5 minutes. Do you want to say goodbye to us with this last poem we read?
Yes, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. The last poem in Memento Mori is called Every New Thing. Every new thing is an act of treason, a betrayal of the comfortable, the familiar. An animal that is known only the cage will cringe in a corner if the door suddenly swings open, squealing on ancient rusted hinges. If I have one wish for you, for me, for us all, is to remember that our own cages are locked only by the fear of change. That we have the power to shove the door open, to take one step, then another, into a new world.
Wow. And this was, we still have almost 2 minutes to discuss this. What inspired this?
Well, a very good friend, an artist colleague, a sculptor named Ann Hirsch, who, this is her sculpture on the cover of the book. She also did the sculpture of Bill Russell at Boston City Hall Plaza. She's wonderfully talented. And we were both Boston artists in residence for 2017. And she was getting a new studio, and I said, man, why don't you have a studio warming? And she said, well, yeah. I said, no. And she had a studio warming. And this was sort of a big venture for her, taking on this new space. And so I thought that I would write a poem as a sort of a housewarming poem for her, a studio warming poem. And so that's what I did, and it's dedicated to her.
For something new, breaking through.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we have only about 35 seconds left to say goodbye. If there's any last words you want to tell our viewers.
I'd like to thank you for inviting me. This was a lot of fun. We had a fun conversation, and I really appreciate the chance to test drive a few of these new poems, and thanks for giving me a shot at doing that.
Oh, I'm very touched that you came. Thank
My
you. This
pleasure.
is Charles Coe, and people can. You have a website?
I do.
which-
Charles.co. Charles Cole. No, sorry. Charles